A century-old landmark church in Sweden's Arctic town of Kiruna has been moved, in one piece, to a new location. The unusual relocation clears space for the expansion of Europe's largest underground iron ore mine. The mine is vital for Sweden's economy and central to the EU's strategy to reduce reliance on China for critical minerals used in green tech. From Berlin, DW correspondent Arthur Sullivan explains why the church was shifted, how crucial the mine is, and if Europe can truly cut that dependence.
Yeah, it's a lot of trouble to go to, so it's a good question. You really need to justify doing something like this because it's taken 8 years to plan. It's cost 45 to 50 million euros. It has involved the moving of this entire church 5 kilometers across town. So why exactly should you do it? Well, the short version is that it's been to make space for the expansion of what is already Europe's largest underground mine. Now, for well over a century, the Swedish city of Kiruna, which is way up in the country's far northern Arctic region, has been associated with mining, and specifically mining iron ore. But it's not just the church that's been moved now, it's actually the entire city centre, because as the mine expands for various reasons, the ground around the mine and around the town is getting weaker, and it's led to a risk of buildings such as this iconic 113-year-old church collapsing. Now, the good news is that the church's 2-day journey has been successfully completed. It has arrived intact at its new home after a very slow journey, which was measured at around half a kilometre per hour. And that event was live streamed. It was attended by the King of Sweden, so it certainly was a big deal up there. But actually, this story is about much more than moving a church, and it's about much more than Sweden. Well, this is the longer version, so this is not just any old mine, and it's no longer just about iron ore. Because 2 years ago, the state-owned company which runs this mine, they're called LKAB, they made a big announcement that they had found very significant deposits of rare earths in the ground there, and that they hope to extract them. Now, many of the viewers there will know what rare earths are, but for those who don't, rare earths are these chemical elements which are needed for practically every element of modern manufacturing, particularly high-tech manufacturing. But very few countries actually produce them. Now, despite their name, they are abundant in the ground around the world, in many countries. But what is not abundant are mines where they are actually produced, because extracting, processing, and then refining rare earths is very complicated, very expensive, and very highly polluting. And China is basically the only country that has been capable and willing to do it at scale for decades. Now, what's changed is that the increasing importance of rare earths for high-tech applications, including for defence applications, it means they're now of huge strategic importance. And we saw that earlier this year when China restricted the export of some of them in response to US President Donald Trump's trade tariffs. And that really highlighted how important it was for places like Europe and elsewhere around the world to establish their own supply. Well, that's the big question that's been asked by many people across Europe at the moment in various boardrooms and political centres, and that's where the importance of Karuna comes in. Now, it is going to take many more years for LKAB in the town of Karuna to establish if they can, first of all, actually get the rare earths out of the ground, if there are truly enough there, if it can process them, it can refine them, and then, of course, if it all makes economic sense to do so. Now, this big expansion, which involved the moving of the church, is obviously part of that process. And this firm in Sweden is really making major efforts to do so. And these efforts come at a time when there's probably more political will across Europe than there has ever been before to support the attempts at finding rare earths as a strategic concern rather than just an economic concern. Now, I would say that in short, Karuna represents Europe's best current prospect of having a mine capable of producing rare earths at scale in the decades ahead. And given the changing geopolitical dynamic between China, the US, the EU, and other parts of the world, it really does appear to be becoming a more urgent challenge. So that, in short, is the story of how moving this church in a small town in northern Sweden is actually tied to a much bigger geopolitical issue.